Afade, my name is Ryan, and this is Data Points. Today we're going to have Dr. Anita Enriquez from the University of Guam on. And I asked her to come on because I'm in the technology business and I need to hire people. And where am I going to hire them from? How are they being prepared? What does she foresee as the workforce of the future, and what steps is the university taking to align with businesses? And these are all questions I wanted answered. And I ran into her separately. And so I said, well, stop answering me there, answer on the podcast. So she did. So I appreciate her coming on, and I appreciate you listening, and I appreciate you liking, sharing, subscribing, and listening on all our platforms. We're on YouTube, Instagram, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. And we're looking forward to your questions too, or suggestions for guests. Please give us a shout, give us a like, share, subscribe, and let us know. Hafide, and welcome to Data Points. My name is Ryan, and I'm the president of Pinpoint Guam, and I'm really excited to be sitting here with Dr. Anita Enriquez, the president of the University of Guam. Welcome, Dr. Enriquez.
Thank you very much, Hafide. Ryan, so happy to be here. Thank you so much for welcoming the University of Guam into this space.
I shout out to our Rotary Club connection. I grabbed Dr. Enriquez at a recent meeting I was attending. I was like, could you please come on?
And I was trying to recruit a member away from his club into my club. So I do apologize again.
I know. Well, you're going after the wife, so I don't know that there's a lot of hope for me now.
That's okay. 28 years history with the Rotary, and just everything about it in terms of its credo and that service above self mantra still resonates in everything that I'm sure you and I do.
I agree, and one of the reasons we're here is serving the community, and you serve the community as the president of the university, and you serve the workforce in terms of providing a viable product for us to move forward.
Absolutely.
And that's one of the reasons I asked you to come on today, because I'm in a technology business, and I'm wondering, how the university is keeping pace with the demands of the business community, considering a lot of our local talent is choosing to leave. They have different options for education, and I've seen a lot of changes in the university, and they're really exciting. I've been hiring some interns from the university, which is great. And so I'd like you to speak a little bit about some of the initiatives that you've put in place in your last 2.5 years.
Thank you. And I'm very grateful that you see value in our interns. And I just want to mention that the University of Guam recently made mandatory an internship experience for every single student.
That's amazing.
Right. And the importance of ensuring that students understand the expectations of the different industries in whatever capacity, but also to give a preview to our employers of what students are capable of doing. So it's a wonderful, wonderful relationship, and I thank you for that. So I have been with the university for a long time, for over 30 years, and I began my journey as an assistant professor both of management and marketing. So I'm a student of management and marketing. I grew up in the private sector, and the reason I chose this profession is I wanted to make a difference in the classroom. But if history serves me right, executives had other things in mind, knowing about my background in the private sector, in management, and consulting and so forth. They decided that I should make a difference in the field of administration. And so I should not have listened to them early on. But I do want to say that in my current capacity as president, the beauty about being president is that, I'm able to work with the amazing people at the University of Guam to bring them together and to effectuate positive change that meets the relevant needs of our communities at large. So since my term began in August of 2023, we've seen the unfolding of a number of different degree programs, a number of different initiatives, higher visibility. With the new strategic plan, we themed the Tulus Motna strategic plan. It was developed with purpose. We included different stakeholder groups in the development of that plan. Tulus Motna in Samoro means propelling forward. And how that theme was arrived was very interesting. Former President Robert Underwood, back between 2010 and 2018, his theme was going from good to great. Okay. And he took the university through that journey. And it meant reassessing everything that we were and everything we did, and coming up with a way to better align our I call it our infrastructure as an organization. From there, we were able to to shift or pivot to being recognized in terms of the research, the quality of research that we've been able to deliver, huge amounts of grants from the National Science Foundation and other STEM-related types of offerings. And then we segue to former President Thomas Christ. And his theme was Parahulu. In Samoro, Parahulu was ever upward. And so his priorities were leading as a research university, and I added centered in island wisdom, and leading as a partner, being recognized as a research university and leading as a partnership university. And so fast forward to my presidency, as I expressed to the Board of Regents, is that I don't believe in throwing the baby out with bathwater. What does that mean? You take what is still good, you take what is still relevant, and you continue that journey forward. It's like passing on the baton. And so we felt that we made a lot of strides, being recognized as a research university, and of course, effectuated so many different partnerships, leading as a partnership university. I said, those are still very relevant. Those are still very good. But what else should we be paying attention to? So what had happened in the 2020s, the early 2020s? A global pandemic, a lot of disruption in the workforce, a lot of disruption among students, within families. And then we went and experienced Typhoon Mawar. And so the students of today were the COVID kids. The students of today have come out with a lot of feeling of insecurity. They don't want to stray too far from home. They don't want to leave the island. They need that sense of community, but they also needed additional support. So we recognized that we needed to beef up our efforts on behavioral health and wellness.
Okay.
Right. And providing those counseling services, being able to assure our students that there is this ecosystem of support, to also convey to our employees that this is a different generation of students, regardless of their age. I said, this is a new era. So Tulis Motna strategically was a theme that we came up with. It says, what do we do moving forward? How do we propel the institution forward? How do we get everybody on board? So the new strategic pillars within the Tulis Motna strategic plan, number one, focus on student success.
Okay.
And essentially taking students, helping them navigate through their journey to get them to their destination.
Okay.
The second pillar had to do with, being mindful of our purpose. We have a threefold mission of INA, our instructional offerings, Discovery, our research focus, as well as SETB. It had to do with services, essential work, and so forth. But at the core of those three endeavors is, what is our purpose for being? To deliver public value.
Okay.
And so recognizing that there are investments that come in from government general fund, but also ensuring that we hold ourselves accountable for the investment being made by our multiple stakeholders, whether they be students, parents, spouses, federal, local agencies, nonprofits, our partners. We have to be able to demonstrate that we are delivering public value, and there's that accountability piece. So Tulis Motna really has to do with, strategic pillar number 2 is staying true to our overall purpose across those three endeavors, but positioning the university across those three endeavors as a trusted source for quality offerings. Okay. The third strategic pillar really has to do with employees, taking care of them through Inadahi's and Inat Gofli'i. Inadahi has to do with, the Samoro term in terms of Adahi, to watch out for. We do it together. Inat Gofli'i is Gofli'i, I see you. I see you regardless of your differences. We are still all part of this community, right? We're still all part of this community. The fourth pillar has to do with sustaining the institution, improving upon the financial health of the university and sustaining growth initiatives. And so all four dive in deeper, but we felt that, we still had on board being recognized as a research university and leading as a partnership university. We have over 100 different signed partnerships. We have received designation, Carnegie designation, as a research college and university. And that's huge.
Right.
This speaks to quality. So everything we do is very intentional across each of those 4 strategic pillars. And I feel like there's never enough time, Brian. I mean, it's almost like a race against the clock.
Right.
Right? Especially during my term as president. But it comes with huge intention. And I always say that we're only as strong as our weakest link. And by surrounding myself with really, really sharp, dedicated, passionate people, so that essentially we're propelling together. We're propelling together to ensure that we're staying true to our mission and that we're meeting the relevant needs of our communities at large, not just here on island, but across the region.
That approach makes a lot of sense, especially from what I understand about kind of Gen Z and needing that purpose, right? And then leveraging your strength as a research center, which has traditionally been the strength of the university,
right,
in specific sectors. But now, again, you have new degree programs like the engineering degree, and you stood up a building, and there's exciting things that are coming from that. But what I love about that is the thought leadership piece that comes out to the community from having those assets within the university. And so, like with your public policy people, with your data science people, those are the people like most on my radar. I've seen really good output in terms of thought leadership and ideating about some of the problems. And so do you feel like you were set up for success as a thought leadership entity, especially when you're looking at larger government processes and endemic island problems? Because one of the things that I struggle with is data collection and aggregation. And one of the things that I've seen through your leadership of the university stood up is like the Research Corporation of Guam, where you're standing up entities that are skilled at bringing some of that infrastructure that you need to do some of those aggregation pieces.
Right.
Can you talk to me about kind of your approach and your idea respective to that?
Right. So we have so many sharp folks across the many different units at the University of Guam. We were able to bring in a huge $20 million National Science Foundation grant to support EPSCoR, which required Internet 2 and really the ability to be able to manage large amounts of research data that dealt with the marine scientists, building the capacity of young researchers working side by side with our scientists in order to see what else is out there and to make these new discoveries. The Research Corporation of the University of Guam allows us to be able to effectively and efficiently manage and certainly execute these different outside grants and contracts by working not only with those within our respective research centers, but also those across other academic units and partners from outside of our university borders to address many different facets of our community, the many different disciplines, whether we're dealing with developmental disabilities, we're dealing with cancer research, we're dealing with, oh my goodness, natural resources, many other terms that go beyond my vocabulary, obviously, but being managed by a number of experts, including a team of administrative staff and their respective leaders or directors who can manage that. But the one initiative that I really want to highlight as well is the Guam Data Village, the Guam One-Stop Data Village, which is a partnership between the Guam Department of Education, the Guam Community College, and the University of Guam, having all of our data experts, institutional researchers come together with their respective staff, and through federal funding, mirror the type of initiatives that have already taken place, not only in the U.S. mainland, but also in the CNMI. It's marrying the data across all 3 educational institutions, but also looking at expanding with Department of Public Health and Social Services, as well as the Guam Department of Labor.
Right, and I bring that up, and I'm excited to hear because I had no idea that was in the offering. But But I bring it up because what I find increasingly is a problem, especially as we move, the discussion right now is around performance-based budgeting. Yeah. And the question I ask is, well, how are you going to measure KPIs when you don't even have a handle on your data? How are you aggregating and parsing your data? And what infrastructure do you have for parsing that data?
Absolutely.
And so what excites me about your approach is the idea that you're cultivating that infrastructure that can parse that data.
Oh, absolutely.
And just for your awareness, in case you didn't know, one of the challenges for a lot of economic data that you need to action a lot of these grants is anonymization.
Yeah.
Right? If you're pulling tax data, you need to have someone certified to anonymize it. If you're pulling healthcare data, you need to have an apparatus to anonymize. Right. And so you have the reporting capacity at the government level, but you don't have the anonymization capacity to get it to you in the format that you need to action your programs. But if you had good data, there's so much in grants that are high priority that we would be action for.
Right.
That you would have the capacity to kind of spill out.
Absolutely.
And push that thought leadership piece. Right. And I thought that was worth saying because that's important. Because I think that the university should be the clearinghouse for all this data. And I think the university should have the parsing infrastructure through all this data.
Correct.
And I think through entities like the Research Corporation of Guam or whatever other special purpose entities can be stood up to facilitate that. It's great because it's a great model because the loss leaders is the data aggregation in a lot of ways.
Absolutely. So we're waiting for the status of a grant that we submitted to the Economic Development Administration in partnership with former Senator Dr. Sam Mabidi.
Okay.
Working in concert with our Vice Provost for the Office of Institutional Effectiveness, as well as our Vice Provost for the Center for Research and Innovation. Mm-hmm. And so should we receive the funding for that, we can establish an actual office to sort of propel that type of initiative. We're very excited about that. It brings me back to, it may have been 2008 or 2012 when I wrote a technical assistance grant to the U.S. Department of Commerce, EDA, to stand up a new Pacific Center for Economic Initiatives, recognizing that data, particularly economic data, was scant, and finding a vehicle to leverage the types of expertise we had. Then I was the dean of the School of Business and Public Administration, from among the faculty and senior level of students or graduate students who wanted to participate in being able to collect the data and so forth. So from that particular center, we were able to engage in the Buy Local campaign initiative, and that was through a grant from the Department of Interior, Office of Insular Affairs, and I was able to bring in our resident economist, Dr. Clarette Ruane, because we wanted to assess what was the mood of the community, what was their perception about locally produced goods, because we heard anecdotally that as well, not as high quality or it's overpriced and so forth. And so through the funding, which in part was to be able to infuse this campaign to shift the mindset. So we did a pre and post survey, and we came up with a wonderful data results through the technical report that we produced under that particular center. We also had the Guam One Village, One Product initiative, in which I engaged Dr. Fred Schumann from the tourism side, Professor Peter Barcenas, from the College of Natural Applied Sciences Extension side. But we really wanted to do something that was going to help develop these respective village economies. But we first needed to get some data. We wanted to find out what are these natural resources that are found within each of the different villages. And so that was a fun project. Again, we produced a technical report for that. Everything that we produced was available publicly, open source. And there were a number of other technical reports. We did one on attracting boomers and millennials to downtown Hagåtña. That was research that I did with my daughter. And we have a technical report for that as well.
Hey, Rudy, what's the year?
Yeah.
I can look this up.
Yeah. And so that was a fun project as well that we were able to come up with some useful findings and recommendations. So anything that was of purpose, anything that had any kind of economic stimulus, potential, we would engage in. But we use many other types of faculty researchers to engage in these particular studies.
Yeah, and I guess the point is we're in uncharted territory in a lot of different ways. We need that research capacity.
Right.
And the EDA, the economic development, is high priority grants, a lot of money behind that. Right
Absolutely.
now. And if you can structure the data, our economic case is, if it's a competitive grant, I think we would be at the top of the pile.
Right. And there's, ongoing there are ongoing funds. We call them TA, or technical assistance funding.
Mm-hmm.
And those funds, as long as the priorities are included in what we call the Guam Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy Plan, that usually is developed by the Guam Economic Development Authority with the blessing of the governor. Sure. As long as it's listed within those plans, or at least amended to include that type of project, then it will get, it has a high probability of being funded. The funding for that is up to $150,000. So, different initiatives like the Guam Unique Merchandise Art, others dealing with tourism, anything that's going to have some kind of economic development output would make a nice candidate for funding.
So if I was in a technical industry and I needed capacity from the university at some point, what's the process I would go through to have the conversation to say, okay, what's the output going to be? What's the infrastructure look like? What are the kinds of questions you would ask of me to stand something up like that and stand up the support infrastructure I need to pursue something that would be maybe stood up by an EDA grant that you could put infrastructure in?
Right. So, well, technical assistance is really soft funding, okay. Right? It's service oriented. They do have some infrastructure for I call it the hardware, the facility, and so forth. That has to go through a whole rigorous review, which includes their attorney, their public works, engineer, experts, et cetera. And it's a much longer, more arduous application process. We do have the Research Corporation of the University of Guam, as well as the Office of Research and Sponsored Programs that can leverage their expertise, meeting with someone, let's say, if as a private business, there are certain eligibility requirements, mm-hmm. right? If you're a nonprofit or government entity, easier access. But I don't know if a private business will qualify, depending on what type of grant it is. But sitting down, meeting with those two unit heads and having a discussion and getting their thoughts with regard to how to navigate through that process, that would be the start.
Well, so I say private business, but a lot of times as a private business, I'll have demand for a product that the infrastructure doesn't exist for. Okay. Like, say, as an example, additive manufacturing.
Right.
If I wanted to go into 3D printing things, right. Well, one of the gaps here is there's no one to produce the plans and the drawings, right? Okay. So if there was some technical assistant grant to stand up some infrastructure to produce locally those drawings to help facilitate it, then you would have a buyer. But just as what I find is when you're bringing a new technology to the market, a lot of times you have to stand up all the surrounding infrastructure versus just the one thing. Right. So the point I'm making is the university can sometimes help you with technical assistance grants to stand up the infrastructure right. that you need to facilitate your operating your business.
Right. Particularly if it's something that is of a sort of like a pilot mm-hmm. phase. Exactly. In a number of the larger universities that are research universities, we call it it's called research, innovation, and commercialization.
There you
right?
go.
And then there are funds like the SBIR, Small Business Innovation Research, where a private entity could come in and in partnership with the University of Guam can collaborate on that particular grant. And it really is the whole R&D, research and development phase. Mm-hmm. And so those exist. We can come in and assist an outside entity like yourself to have those conversations to figure out how do we navigate through. I would recommend perhaps someone from the School of Engineering.
Yeah.
Right. And so somebody like a Dr. Guadis who's fascinated with the whole 3D concrete manufacturing potential, the R&D. He has experience in that particular case. Have a conversation with the dean to be able to determine, well, is this the route to take, or perhaps we should pull in other experts, subject matter experts from the university.
And that's why I like the approach, because we're a small place, and so we have a lot of ideas, but not a lot of the execution capacity, and we don't have a scalable market. Right. Or if I bring in this execution capacity, that I'll even be able to monetize it in a way that makes sense.
Right.
So the university really helps in kind of bringing those loss leaders at least to bear to see if there is a market.
Right.
And to create like infrastructure where I can sustain a business with the talent that's kind
absolutely
of in.
And that is what the Research Corporation of the University of Guam was originally perceived to do. Mm-hmm. And so if you speak to our public auditor, former speaker, B.J. Cruz, is Anita, you need to read Startup Nation about Israel. And he goes, and that's what you guys ought to be doing. I said, I completely understand. Sure. But certainly that is what the vision is for RCOG. Mm-hmm. And so we'd be happy to explore that. We have a hatchery where we engage in a public-private partnership. And certainly we hope that we could get someone new on board to help us take it through that whole process, to the commercialization stage.
Well, that's why I'm excited about programs like Destino Guahan with Nita, where they're seeding like small businesses. But what's missing from those programs is the advisory piece.
Absolutely. Right. So my economic development hat. Yeah. I think about, how do you turn a small business into a gazelle?
Exactly.
So you've got these startups, and then you continue to have these venues where they all meet, they're showcasing their offerings, but what's next? Mm-hmm. So I put on my capstone professor hat, and I think about, well, how do you take it further, right? How do you propel it forward and upward? And where are you in that growth phase, right? And what else can we do? So the Guam Small Business Development Center, I've spoken to former counselors like Denise Mendiola, who's now with the Department of Revenue and Tax, and she was amazing. But I said, our job, even at the university, is to go knocking on the door and say, what else can we do for you? Like once upon a time, I drove through the drive-through of Wendy's, and this is before they offered bottled water. I said, I put on my marketing professor hat. I said, the trend now is to be more healthy. So why don't you tell your manager to start offering bottled water? This is before the whole green economy thing. Because I don't drink soda, I don't like all that sugar, but there are a lot of people like myself who, we're worried about the diabetes, we're worried about all these things. So please, and then you started seeing more water, and water's an option, for for these meals. And then of course, I go to another place that, you might want to think about having some keto offerings, right? Because there are people who are staying away from sugar. And so, and that's what I miss about being a professor, because I'm not in the classroom anymore. And a lot of my students are in their 50s, and they know, and they're like, gosh, the one thing I remember about your class is when you taught us about the art of finesse, right? The art of finesse. And I'm like, yeah. And I said, and one thing there are a lot of things that still resonate, like environmental scanning, constantly scanning your environment, keeping up with everything, every single day, and not be thrown off because you had your head in the sand.
No one looks up from their phones, Dr.
I know. So how do we take them away from their phones, right? So we're mindful about all these things, and then of course the changing generations that have come through our campus doors. When we hear professors say, these students, they're not using their critical thinking skills. I'm like, well, remember they came out of this. I said, how many of them came out of direct instruction and that period of time? How many of them came out of this era? And they said, they all, they're feeling very, very anxious. They're feeling, their suicidal tendencies are like, these are the COVID kids. We need to take better care of them. So being mindful of just the social dynamics, the shifts in the demographics, the changes in the economy, the political spectrum, the digital age that is upon us. I said, are we prepared for that? But making sure that our people know, hey, like when a professor says, well, they're adults, they need to figure it out. I said, they're coming to me for help.
Yeah.
What does that say? They're coming to me for help.
Well, people just want to be fed answers now, and it's really easy to get, and you get used to feeding answers, and that's part of the problem.
Oh, absolutely, right? And especially they come, there's the generation, like I come from that generation where we're helicopter parents.
Yeah,
and they're so used to mom and dad, parents, especially mothers of 20-something sons. So my son still doesn't want to get his driver's license. So that's because he's used to mom taking care of everything. And then, of course, we hear about students taking not just one gap year after high school, but I said, well, how long has it been? I'm taking a gap year. How long has it been? It says, I graduated 3 years ago. I said, well, yeah, that's not gap year. That's gap years. And so we're like, okay, that's the other dynamic that's taking place. I'm like, what do we do with them? So many different nuances.
Data Points is powered by GTA Business because reliable data starts with a reliable network. If your current provider is slowing you down, it's time to make the switch. GTA Business delivers faster speeds, better reliability, and local support you can count on. And as Guam's only full-stack provider, from small business, enterprise, and government, GTA offers fiber, wireless, and secure data center solutions to keep your business running without compromise. Bring your business to GTA and start getting more from your network today. So I've spoken to Dean Jones from the university. She came and spoke at a Rotary Club thing, right? And one of the things she was saying is the kids now, there's not a sense of community around the campus because it's more commuter campus,
yes.
Right? And then there's not a lot of opportunity, socially here, right? So that leads to the bleeding of your potential talent.
Right.
And then the opportunity for future employment here seems grim when you're coming in and your desired degree programs. So when you speak to commercialization of the university, that becomes more pertinent than ever, especially because you're competing with online degrees, online certifications, stackable certificates. Even like a GCC is a potential competitor for dollars in terms of how people are compartmentalizing education, right? But the commercialization is important because your model, the dollars and cents models that you're running, really need to align with employers because your value proposition is you get to stay home, you get to learn locally, and you get to work locally.
Absolutely.
And then you can transition elsewhere because you're scalable, but you get a quality education right here.
Absolutely.
And I think people want the in-person too,
absolutely,
whether they say it or not.
Well, absolutely. You're absolutely. People are those who did not like having to be virtual all the time during the global pandemic. They want that sense of community. They want that sense of connection. And so we recognize that now with the new Dr. Alicio C. Tan Student Success Center. That is that hub, the hub for gathering. You've got so many different spaces for students to study together, to gather, to have meetings, the huge dining hall. Hopefully we get our vendors up and running, the larger Triton store. Mm-hmm. I mean, so the one-stop center, having everything under one roof. And certainly with the academic schools and colleges, also spaces where students can gather. Right. So we're very mindful of that. Even though we're a commuter campus, we still have a relatively large number of undergraduate students who like to hang out.
Yeah, and really that's what I'm finding in the younger generation and just people in general. That sense of community is missing. That's why churches do well because they breed that sense of community, and that's why that's what's missing, I think, in a lot of ways for retention. But what's good is you involving the business community allows them to be folded in, and then even like you mentioned Dr. Mabini. It's been great with her CTE work, right? And just engaging the educators too and seeing what the output needs to be. And we're even seeding interns in as early as high school.
Yes.
Yeah, and so with the work with the trade academies are doing, all kind of fold into how you're shifting the education.
Absolutely. So I say you can't beat them, just join them.
Yeah.
And so the early pipeline, ensuring that we have a mechanism to reach into the not just high schools, but even middle schools, and constantly assessing how else can we engage counselors, how else can we engage teachers. We have an assigned agreement with every single two-year college across broader Micronesia, including the Guam Community College. What that agreement says is that if you get your associate's degree from any of those two-year colleges, we immediately accept you as a junior, an entering junior at the University of Guam. Even with the associate's degree in nursing at the Guam Community College, where students are able to take and pass the NCLEX exam. For licensure, we immediately take them and bring them into a final year for the bachelor's degree in nursing.
Right.
Right. So it allows them to advance in that nursing profession, but it also sends a positive signal that, hey, continue that journey with us. We have signed articulation agreements as well, and other degrees. Computer science is one, criminal justice, and more we're looking for other ways in which we can have a seamless transition for those who are interested in the baccalaureate and ultimately at the master's level. But we're also mindful of the need for expediency, the need for expediency with regard to professional development. So we've been designing new certificate programs. We're looking at stackable credentials. We're looking at the 3-year bachelor's degree programs and what other universities have been able to effectuate and still get WASC accredited. So with the new bachelor's degree in construction management just approved by our board, that's going to unfold in August. We're also looking at getting through our system a new bachelor's degree in electrical engineering. So we don't offer mechanical engineering. We've had an agreement with the University of Hawaii's College of Engineering for mechanical engineering. And the agreement we have is that after the students take the first 2 years, it's a seamless transfer to the 3rd and 4th years in Hawaii. We don't offer a master's degree in social work, but we signed an agreement with the University of Hawaii Manoa, where students who graduate with their bachelor's in social work don't have to leave island. And they can continue their journey to get that master's degree for advanced credential, and that diploma gets presented at the University of Guam's commencement.
Yeah, that's amazing because that kind of compartmentalization breeds into kind of what people need right now.
Absolutely.
Right? Being able to take it when I can, as I can. Economics might be a problem, right? Even your last mile program that you recently spoke about is really great, where you run out of money, right, and you're like maybe your last credit out, but then there's a scholarship and kind of
right. We said I said take them to the finish line.
Right.
So the last mile scholarship exists for those who are financially at risk of stopping out. We call it stopping out in higher ed. In K-12, we call it dropping out. And so we are very mindful that people come to us for that value proposition. They want a better quality of life. Our vision still remains transforming lives of our students and advancing the communities in which we live, work, and play in. So students, and of course now this under the Trump administration, there's that accountability piece. Is that if you are not going to make more money after you achieve this degree, that if you hadn't and you just graduated from high school, if you don't have higher earnings, then that degree wasn't worth it. And so we're all concerned about the ROI, the return on investment. And as I've always reminded our administrators, as a public land-grant and sea-grant university, we have a fiduciary responsibility to the taxpayers of this economy to give them a positive return on taxpayers' investment. And we want to stay true to that. So I don't want their journey at the University of Guam to receive that degree to be what we call in Samoa lastima. Lastima denotes waste. It's a waste of resource, waste of time, waste of manpower. We don't want it to be a waste. We want our students to have that added value that can then propel them to wherever they want to go with that degree.
That's right. So how much does the labor force or the business community inform your degree pathways?
To a large extent, we do, at least for every single dean has been charged to have an advisory council. An advisory council is a representation of different types of stakeholders, including alumni. So for the School of Business and Public Administration, I then had a 14-member advisory council representing captains of industry.
Okay. And
so they serve as the heartbeat of industries as employers, but they also serve as ambassadors for the university, and they serve as champions for any kind of new program that we want to advocate through the whole faculty senate process. And it has been very successful. Other programs have their own respective advisory council. The School of Engineering, I think, has a 40-plus member advisory councils, so that the deans are well informed and that they remain relevant with their respective offerings.
That's more advisors than faculty, right?
Absolutely, and it's wonderful because they represent different industries. Yeah.
That's cool. It's really cool. So, what other degree programs are you looking to stand up in the coming future? Do you like?
So it's not necessarily the new degree programs. We're looking at stackable credentials, new certificate offerings. We already have 18 within our portfolio. We're also, what I like to see is that every single student has a fundamental understanding of AI as well as cybersecurity. We have a survey that's already been conducted among students about generative AI.
Okay.
And so the data will then inform us, what do we need to do, right? What are the expectations of this particular stakeholder group, and how do we navigate moving forward? Our new director of the Center for Online Learning just did a whole presentation about AI to our 200 plus of 1,000 plus staff members currently at the hotel. And she spoke about the do's and don'ts of AI and what AI, AI won't replace your position, but can be used as a very effective tool to help, move things quicker and more effectively and so forth. But you still need to exercise judgment as an employee, right?
What do you think about the idea that the humanities are going to be more important as a degree program, with the advent of AI? What do you think?
Well, the humanities are important because, that's where that whole critical thinking, right, philosophical, discussions and I that whole sense of ethics, right? Yeah. I mean, that's important, and because we still have to work together as human beings. You still have to have judgment, right? You still have to have an opportunity to have discourse. We can't just blindly believe in everything we read.
I agree.
That right, and so we're still going to need innovators and innovators based on meaningful conversations, people with different points of view that are going to play that devil's advocate, and being mindful of that sense of care.
Right. I think there tends to be more of a focus on technical education and training.
Oh, absolutely.
But I think the humanities are important because you have to realize where we came from.
Yeah, absolutely.
What the different revelations are, in terms of how we got to these different epochs and ideation.
You still need to have the imagination, the creativity that gets spurred through the conversations.
Sure.
That sense of play, that sense of interaction. Those are very important, and I think something that I know that's something that we still need to emphasize in a lot of our different spaces.
But that's why it's cool. College campuses are kind of a place where those things happen.
Oh, absolutely.
Leadership piece. So, what are some of the kind of the wild swings that are happening on campus that you think are kind of quirky that might lead to something?
We have we call them our governance teams. We have the Student Government Association, student leaders. We have the staff council. We have the administrative council. We have the president's council. We have a faculty union.
Wow. Yeah.
Everybody's, all these different checks and balances, right? You're like holding us accountable. I said, oh my gosh, I have so many bosses on campus.
I know.
You're like yeah. So we always have to be careful, but at the same time, we encourage everyone to be a part of the solution, but make sure that there are these spaces for inclusion, to have those conversations, to try something different. I love to have, I'm going to have a competition on innovation. Right. I'm going to have separate conversations with faculty about what innovation means. I've had coffee with the president, gatherings. I want to learn from the students, not just, I don't want it to be a gripe session. I want them to talk about their dreams. I want them to talk about possibilities, what the gaps are, and how they can be a part of closing those gaps. I want them to be aware of what is going out across, the different environments that we operate within and we serve, and so that they're better prepared. And our administrators have them be mindful. Hey, if we can't get it together, then we need to rotate out. But that whole accountability piece is new. Right. And the whole idea of having a profit and loss statement given to every single administrator is new. Like, what? You know, you mean I just gotta keep spending my money? I said, no. And what else are you doing to balance the books? You know, what new net revenue streams are coming in? And how are you engaging in cost efficiency measures? Because at the end of the day, anything that goes wrong, the buck stops with me. Yeah. And every one of the employees serve as ambassadors. I said, everything we do promotes the experience of our visitors, including our students. And everybody's a stakeholder to each other across departments, from the outside, and so forth. And so that mindset of, you know, reminding everyone who makes up, I call it the UOG trichofamilia, is that everybody has purpose. But we also need to recognize that they need tools. They need the tools. So in the same manner that we have expectations for all of the leaders and the employees in general, we want to convey the same thing for our students. By every single student being required to go through an internship experience, it's a game changer. And we're also looking at programs where there is a potential risk of them not being able to produce more financially than they would have if they just graduated from high school. So I said, perhaps we need to infuse some technology training, some stackable credentials to supplement or to augment a traditional type of degree program. The 3-year bachelor's degree program is going to be a game changer as well. The more online offerings in full degree format, like the Doctor of Education, which is fully online, the Master of Accountancy, that's fully online, the Master's degree in Reading is fully online. I believe the Master of TESOL, do we still have that? Is fully online. We just launched a new bachelor's degree in early childhood development, right? And that came as a response to a unit on our military installation. And so having more partnerships with employers is something we're going to see more of, right? And so I'm excited about the journey ahead to Wisconsin, and doing more to be better responsive to I say relevant, because relevant is based on data.
I really appreciate how on brand you are with projecting forward. And I do think the internships are going to yield real value. And one of the reasons I say that is because I was recently giving a career day speech and they're asking me about compensation. And I say, when you graduate out of the university, I'll start you at this rate, but generally within about a year, you'll be making about $5 more than that rate. Yeah. But that's because I have to train you to a certain extent. Sure. But if I had you with me while you were at uni and I'm training you all these skills, by the time you have your degree, you can be at that $5 extra rate, because I've been able to seed those things into your and give you those performance parameters in advance and set those expectations for you. So it really is helpful to have the kids integrated with us from such an early age, even from the high school, even from the middle school. And it's important for us as hiring entities to continue that conversation.
Sure. Right. So we have the military recruiters are very active, especially among the high school students. And I said, they're an indirect competitors, right, of universities. And so I run into high school seniors. Oh, I've already signed on and I've committed to the Air Force, or I've committed to the Marine Corps. And so I say, why a day are you going to just enlist when you could easily go through a program at the university and become an officer and make more money for your new bride or your new husband? And a lot of it is just not enough awareness, not enough visibility. And so one of the efforts that I intend to improve upon is having more visibility. You know, I want the University of Guam in every single village, partner with every single mayor, making sure that our information is easily accessible, and making sure that people understand how can I afford to navigate through the higher education space, whether it be for a degree or a certificate or some kind of stackable credential. How do I navigate through that space? And so closing the gap in terms of access and affordability is very important to us. And so, we'll see more efforts going in there. And so for the students, so, well, why can't I just go straight to the workforce? You can. I mean, many of us have, even while pursuing college. And I tell them, well, you can continue, you can enter this journey over the next 4 to 5 years straight into the workforce after high school, But if you're in a specific kind of industry, I said that will make a difference between, a $20,000, $25,000 annual compensation and a $55,000 annual compensation. I'll give you an example. So among the first cohort, graduating cohort from our civil engineering program, a young person was hired, and she came out of an internship with a partner private employer. And less than 3 years later, I ran into her and she says, wow, I'm really enjoying it. I'm so happy to report I just got promoted. And so I said, well, I hope they're paying you your worth, your value. She goes, yeah, they're paying me $75,000 a year. And so I imagine that student coming out of, she was a public school graduate and making maybe, if not minimum wage, maybe $9, $10 an hour. And then just within a 6-year period or 7-year period, her 4 years plus her additional experiences, she was able to improve upon her livelihood in terms of compensation. I mean, just multiple folds. And so we're trying to identify what are the different employers offering so that we can get that message to our middle school students as well as to our high school students. Because it pains me when I run into young adults as, oh, there are no jobs here, or they don't pay much of anything, and it's because of lack of awareness.
I think so, but then also a lack of personal awareness, to be fair. Maybe you're not having honest assessment about your personal skill set or some of the things that you're bringing to the table.
Yeah,
to be fair. But I find that we can train most people up to be at the level that we need to be.
Absolutely.
It's just the gap and the readiness is always a determining factor. And I find the internship program that we participated in has produced ultimately that workforce ready.
Right. So the beautiful thing about an internship, it not only allows the student to get a sense of, is this something I still want to do? Is this the industry I still want to pursue? But it also gives the employer sponsor an opportunity to kind of gauge, this is the type of person we want to add to the team long term. And you sort of like test out their capabilities. You take up to that whole training, development process. And hey, if they turn out to be solid, then, you're already in the pipeline. Because I tell folks who are interested in our civil engineering graduates, I said, if you're not part of the first meter, then it's too late. Because I give the example of 30 civil engineering majors a semester before they graduated May 2025. All 30 were offered at least 3 different jobs before they graduate. Yeah. I mean, I'm like, wow. So if you waited until they graduated, it's already too late.
Yeah. But I will say that's not the case for every degree program. Like
right.
If you come out with a business administration degree, you're not getting automatically hired.
Absolutely.
Right? If you come out with a degree in economics, or, you're not necessarily automatically. And so what I see in the workforce is a lot of kids coming out, graduating, and then they'll do one thing for 6 months, and then they'll be, okay, another thing for 6 months. Right. But really, what you're starting over every 6 months to learn the new thing to get to the level of proficiency you just got, rather than sticking with something and being consistent. Because once you get to the 1 year range, you become inherently and intrinsically more valuable to me as an employer.
Absolutely. I mean, the intrinsic part, the loyalty component. In the past, I mean, the baby boomers like, oh my gosh, this person's a job hopper, right? Oh no, they're not reliable. We're not going to invest money in hiring this person because they keep hopping around. And that was a bad thing. Yeah. And I hear, about graduates who enter Google, or Facebook, and already the hiring folks already know these people are not going to stick around long. But if I can have that talent for at least 6 months or a year, that's okay, because they're, it's like a revolving door. But every generation comes a new set of expectations of what is added value and what the expectations. So for specific units on campus where I know that the salaries are not, optimal or not as competitive, I advise the administrators, be prepared that they're going to rotate out at the end of a year or end of 2 years, but already have that particular model where you're ready to entertain a new person or new people to come through, and that's the way it's going to be, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Right?
We just have to learn to live in that ecosystem.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So so that's why I think those conversations are important, because we have to understand what the output is, what the longevity is, what structures we need to put in place.
Absolutely.
So that's where, I really value that approach and the communication and collaboration with the business community and the dollars and cents approach.
Oh, absolutely.
Because you need that to sustain your model, but we need that to sustain ours as well.
Oh, absolutely. So every single person you bring on to your team, is a value-added member for your, respective purpose or mission, right? And so the investment made in trying to recruit, if they don't stay long, then, oh my gosh, you're going to have to invest the same amount of time and effort and funding just to have somebody come through. And so that vetting process through an internship, to me, is very important. I'm a student of vocational high school. So CTE, Career Technical Education, it wasn't called CTE back then, but that's what it was.
Yeah.
And I had an opportunity to work with three different types, as an accounting shop student, three different types of firms. One was an insurance company. The other one was a CPA firm. And the third one was an income tax preparation and bookkeeping firm. And so I had, because of that exposure and the experience, I was able to learn as much about the world of work. And even when after I graduated my bachelor's at a different university, I said to my significant other, if I can't get a degree, get a good job with my bachelor's degree, I can always fall back on my vocational skills that I picked up. Yeah. Because I could type, I could do many different other things. So for our students, the reason I joined higher ed was to make a difference in the classroom, to bring more relevancy and not just be all theories, right? But to bring the application component and to let students know what the employers are expecting, what industry is expecting. And so even as dean, that was very, very important to me, making sure that everything we did was intentional, it had purpose, and it was relevant in response to, the changing demands of our various external stakeholders. And so, that still resonates to today, making sure that every single student has something to look forward to and that they're going to make a positive, value-added member of anybody's team. And so, it's still a work in progress, but I feel really good about this.
Yeah, I think you should. And I've seen the output change over the years, and I really align with kind of where the university is going. So I appreciate all your efforts, and I appreciate you coming to visit with us today. And
thank you for allowing me to share. Yes.
Doing. And is there anything you want to leave as like parting words, or any exciting programs that you want to talk about the university coming up?
Yes. Well, so we have many different outlets of how we're impacting the university. We've got the Center for Island Sustainability Sea Grant with Dr. Austin Shelton. He's obviously very visible across the different villages and in the region. We have others that are making meaningful impacts with our farmers, our fishermen, just our communities at large. And it's hard to keep up. There's so many. It really is. We have over 1,000 employees and over 100 different initiatives. Right. And so thank goodness I follow everybody on Instagram and LinkedIn and Facebook.
Yeah.
But the University of Guam will be celebrating its 75th year Diamond Jubilee next year.
Awesome.
And that's 75 years of impact to the various public. As a parting gift to former President Robert Underwood. So let's put together a coffee table book that represents the threefold mission of the University of Guam, and we ask everyone to contribute to it. Beautiful images and certainly useful narratives to share different representations of the institution and its purpose. So we are going to be developing and publishing a new University of Guam I call it the coffee table book.
Okay.
And we're very excited about that. This was published through the UOG Press, so we're excited to get a new one published. I'm presenting this to Ryan as a parting gift. Yes,
Thank
and
I'm
of
really
course,
impressed by University Press too. Like the
oh
stuff they're
gosh,
doing is like really cool. Like
high
self-publishing.
quality work that's being done. We also have a partnership with another university on the digital. I think it's called the digital seafaring. I forget what the initiative is, but it's fantastic. So that will also be open source. We also have other efforts such as a documentary of the University of Guam that's going to be developed. We produce 2 fantastic videos, an impact video. I should have shared that with you, and also a new recruitment video. We're doing so much more. We have over 100 different partnerships with universities throughout Asia and Pacific and Micronesia in general. And so we leverage those value-added offerings so that we can deliver more value to our local community and our regional community. So we're here to stay. The 75th anniversary will encompass just so much that we've done over the past 7+ decades. And we look forward to inviting the community at large to the different gatherings that we have earmarked for the new year coming up.
Exactly. It's exciting stuff, and thank you for the book. I'm excited.
Of course. Yes. Thank you for being a wonderful partner to the institution.
No, I appreciate your time, and thanks for joining us here on Data Points.
Of course, you take care and keep up the great work.
Thank you.
Thanks.
One of the things that she said is you have to be an expert in all your offerings, and it's clear she has the ins and outs of everything that university is doing, and she's a great advocate for the university. And it seems to me that she does have an eye on what employers need, and she's creating a product that, meaning the graduate, that has a place in the business community. And I think all of us in the business community need to have more open conversations with the university about what the output is, what we're hiring, what the outcomes are for the people that we're hiring, and how we can make that product better. Because ultimately, that's going to make our products better and our businesses more sustainable. And we thank you for helping us make the podcast sustainable by watching on Instagram, YouTube, and listening on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time here on Data Points.